Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the top 5 champions for each position for the 2017 Worlds Tournament that's coming up soon. So we're going to talk about the top 5. We're going to talk about meta considerations. I'm going to do 5 honorable mentions. And by honorable mention, I mean that this champion could be really powerful. It could show up in certain places, but it's less certain to show up than the top 5. And it won't be as universal. So there might be some specific players on some teams or some specific teams in certain regions that will play the champion more, and that will make it more powerful, but it won't be as universal as some of these other picks. I'll go through and explain why something is an honorable mention as well. And occasionally there might be something that's an honorable mention that, you know, will end up being in the top 5. But that's how we're going to do it. So let's go ahead and get in here. Also, if this is the first video that you've seen of mine, you can access this Google Doc in the description if you want to skim and follow along, or if you just want to skip part of it and jump to other parts. Like if you just want to know about the top 5 mid laners or top 5 supports or whatever, you can skip to that section and watch it if you want. And I'll also have timestamps for you in the description as well to help you navigate. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. So we're just going to go top to bottom down the list. So we're going to start with top lane. So meta considerations. In this current meta, the best top laners will be flexible. And what I mean by that is they'll be picked early in the draft, and they will either be suitable for top lane or suitable for the jungle, typically. I don't think there are many tops that could flex mid, possibly Galio. But this is really important strategically for a lot of teams, because when you're starting your draft, you don't want to reveal which kind of composition your team is picking, right? And so one of the best ways to shroud that is to not reveal which role a champion's going to go into. So Jarvan is extremely powerful. Did I put him with the junglers? Yeah, he's with the junglers as well. I called him J4 here in Jarvan. I'll change that just for better consistency there. But yeah, Jarvan is he's going to be the most picked ban champion at Worlds. I can tell you that right now, because he's the most overpowered champion on this patch. And also he has the most tactical flexibility. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at Jarvan here just really quickly. I have done whole videos about, I just did a video recently where I talked a lot about Jarvan. I think it was my tier list for 717 and my wish list and what they would nerf. We'll look at him here just really briefly, and I'm going to try to look at a lot of the champions that I pick here, and we're not going to go like super detailed into them, but just like why I think they're good, why they deserve to be top 5. So the thing about Jarvan that you need to know is his ultimate. Okay, it basically is 3.5-second crowd control on 120-second cooldown that a lot of champions just can't get out of if they don't have flash, especially a lot of the really power pick bot laners right now. So if you think of Twitch, if you think of Kog'Maw, Varus, basically Callista, almost anybody except for Tristana is going to have a hard time getting out of this, because Ezreal's not in the meta right now, and neither is Lucian, not in the bot lane. Okay, so it's going to make it really hard to get out of there. You could, like, Thresh can maybe get you out, but anyways, it's a huge terror, and it cannot be cleansed. It cannot be Quicksilver Sashed. It cannot be Mikhail's Crucibled. So there's no way to get you out of this circle if Jarvan decides to dunk you and you're a squishy champion on the backline. It also has really high base damages. It has a surprisingly long effect range, so it's much further than most auto attacks a champion. So if you're in range, like if you can hit him, he can dunk you. And the low cooldown, as I said before. So it's kind of a really dangerous mix of high power, high base damage, high scaling, really long crowd control duration on a low cooldown. That's just really toxic for the game. It can also trap multiple people. So yeah, a lot of times they will go for the squishy backliner, but there are some like area of effect team compositions where you might just want to trap 2 or 3 people in there and just have Galio drop on top of you, or Kennen ult in the middle of all of that. Or Rakan crowd control everybody. He just has lots of combo potential. So not only is it a really good single target sort of assassination ability, but it also fits well with many different compositions that are team fight oriented. So that makes him really strong. The other thing that makes him particularly strong is his Dragon Strike. So this thing right here, it's only 65 mana. It's very spammable. This is what he's going to level up first. Has an obscene range, like 770. He's a melee champion. So he basically has ranged attacks that are further ranges than Annie further ranges than Rise. I mean, like once you start getting into 800 range, that's kind of like your standard mid laner harass range for a lot of champions, like 8 to 900. And so he almost has as much range as they do. So if you slap him in the top lane, he's going to be able to harass a lot of people pretty easily. And you notice that it goes in a straight line that far, and it has no diminishing returns if it hits extra targets. So that gives him an extreme amount of wave clear early on, because he just stabs the whole minion line for 250, which is also a really high base damage. 250 with a 120% bonus 80 modifier is just ridiculously huge. So once again, it has massive scaling, massive base damage, really low mana, low cooldown, really far range. Oh, and by the way, it also shreds 26% of their armor. So not only do you do effectively basically 26% more damage, but so does your AD carry, so does your Lucian middle, so does anything else that does physical damage on your team. So it's insane. It's really good wave clear. It's really good poke harass. It's really good like burst damage. It has really good utility on it. It's just a super overpowered ability. And it needs to be nerfed. Like this should really be closer to like 500 range. I don't mind the armor shred. Maybe dial it back a little bit. Damage needs to be dialed back. Mana cost probably needs to be increased. So there are just a lot of things that make this super abusable. And then he has a really nice shield for team fighting as well. And he has another buff for his team, which gives everybody up to 25% bonus attack damage. And combos with his Q for a 0.75 second knockup, which is great for ganks. So if he lands his EQ combo, then it's really good setting up for ganks. So, and that allows him to close the gap too. So this not only is a damage, but it's also a 770 gap closer to get closer to ult somebody. So his ult plus this range is like 1300, even if you don't flash. So that's what makes him really strong. And all of these qualities are very good for the jungle as well. So it's not only top lane, but it's jungle. So he does really good. Targets current health on first hit. This is excellent for taking blues and reds. Dragon Strike. It can hit all of the raptors. It can hit the wolves. It can hit the golems. It shreds their armor, so you do more damage to them. It's spammable. It allows him to jump over walls, so you can have really tricky gank paths. And of course, this is a low cooldown, basically point click, they're going to die. That's another thing. There's virtually no skill shots on this guy. It's just point click. Like, I guess you could count this as a skill shot, but it's so fast that people aren't going to be able to outplay it very well. So he's very reliable, tons of crowd control, tons of damage, great team utility with the armor shredding and the attack speed. Excellent in the jungle, excellent top lane, makes him a great flex pick. So that's why he's number one. But that's why flex is so important, because if someone early picks Jarvan, you don't know if he's going top. So if you should pick something against him top, or you don't know if he's going in the jungle. And so if you try to pick something that's good against him top, I don't know. I don't know, like, the intricacies of what would take out Jarvan. I mean, I guess Gnar would be good. Gnar's a pretty safe pick top too. But let's say you wanted to, I don't know, all in him with Fiora or something like that and bully him out. And you pick Fiora, and then they pick a Fiora counter, you know, maybe something like a Renekton, then you could end up in really big trouble. So that's why flex pick is so important, because people don't know where they're going to go. And Jarvan is the number one flex pick. And he's also just happens to be the number one champion in both jungle and top lane. So he's the best champion to flex with, and he's the best in both of those worlds. So anything that can flex. The only two that I have on here that flex really well are Jarvan and Maokai. Jace could flex top or mid if some compositions want to get a little wacky. Galio could potentially flex top, mid, or jungle. You almost never see him jungle. And Cho'Gath could also flex top or jungle. So those are probably the most flexible champions. Split pushing is really important as well. You want to have a split push threat just to make sure that if the enemy team has very good wave clear, that you don't just get stalled out of the game. So, you know, Jarvan can split push. Some of these tanks can do it. Maokai can split push, but the premier split push is obviously going to be Fiora. We'll talk about her in a second. But she's like the best split pusher, and then Shin's pretty good, and Nar's pretty good too. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is you want to have a threat in a side lane to try to, that can 1v1 the other top laner most likely, and can force two people to go up there so that you can get some, force some action on other parts of the map. And you can't split push if you can't 1v1. Okay, because they'll just send whoever their best person is up there most likely. You can convert kills on ganks. So top lane is usually where a lot of ganks go down typically. Sometimes, you know, other places will get ganked, but top lane has historically always been the most ganked lane. And the reason for that is it's a really long lane and it's 1v1. So if you show up, you're going to have a 2-on-1 versus in the bot lane, it's going to be a 3-on-2. So just percentage-wise in terms of power, it's going to be much more advantageous for you if you gank a top lane. You have a much higher chance of securing that kill. Mid lane, you would also get a 2-on-1, but the lane is much shorter, so people can escape much easier. So you can convert on kills, which means if the jungler actually comes up there, you have kill threat, you can kill people, you have some kind of crowd control, and you can also escape from ganks, so you have some kind of easy way to get away from their kills. And then finally, tanky or kills tanks. Tanks are really important in this meta. They're super powerful with items like Thorn Best. Even Warmogs is getting a bit more powerful now. Spirit Visage, Adaptive Helm. There's so many good defensive items, and it's really important to have some kind of tank on your team right now, and often top lane will be one of the tanks. Some of the more common compositions right now is you'll have a tank both in the top and the jungle. You'll have a squishy, high damage person in mid lane. You'll have a hyper carry bot lane, and then the support's kind of variable. Sometimes it's a tank, sometimes it's a an enchanter. But that's a lot of teams will do a 2-tank composition, top and jungle. Those tanks are really good still. They did get some nerfs on this patch, but I still think that tanks are going to be strong. Okay, so who are the best? Jarvan, we just looked at him. Nar's the other one who's really powerful top lane. He's the premier like lane bully right now. He did just get nerfed. He got 30 HP knocked off of his base, which means that he's going to be weaker to ganks, and potentially there's some all-ins that might be able to kill him. Like a Renekton could potentially kill him early. Jace could maybe kill him early. So it does hurt him in some matchups, but I still think he's going to be the best. He just has some unique qualities that make him really good. Let me pull him up here. So first of all, he has a ranged attack. So that means he can harass people in top lane really well. But he's not squishy. So other champions that have ranged oftentimes are squishy. If you think of like Kennen being a premier top lane bully, like Kennen and solo queue Teemo, Jace in pro play. These are kind of good ranged attackers that also have other qualities about them. But Gnar really takes the cake here for several reasons. And he has obviously a ton of attacks. I'm not going to read it all. But the gist of it is he has those auto attacks. He doesn't have mana, so he doesn't have to itemize any mana items. He has pretty good range. I mean, 400 is pretty good for a bruiser. And periodically he turns into Mega Gnar, which gives him a lot of extra health and makes him very difficult to fight. So he turns into a tank. So he's basically like a ranged harasser early. He's like a Kennen-esque type of character, but then he turns into a beast tank who has really good a really good team fight ultimate. So he's excellent at flanking with teleport. So if he rolls up and he turns into Mega Gnar and just like pops in and just like slams 3 people into a wall, the team fight's over. So he has really good flank potential, probably some of the best flank potential in the game right now off of teleport. So that makes him a big threat. He has really good escapes with his, I think is it hop? Yeah, his hop. So he can jump up to 475. That's like 1,000 range. He can jump when he hops, if he hops on one of his own minions. So that's huge. That's like a double flash range. Even further than double flash. So, and he gets bonus attack speed whenever he jumps. I didn't even realize he gets the bonus attack speed. So yeah, he's just very versatile. He has a great escape, hyper. He does a ton of their max health every time he gets a third attack on the same target. And he gets bonus movement speed, so he's just really hard to catch. He's, you know, has that hop to get away. He gets his bonus movement speed. Once he goes hyper, it does quite a lot. I didn't realize it was that much percentage of their max health. 14% is huge on every third attack, and there's no, like, sort of downtime on that. It's just literally every third attack. So, yeah, he scales very well with attack speed in that sense, although you don't see that on him too often. I think people typically... I mean, obviously, people build Black Cleaver on him. That complements his tankiness. It gives him the cooldown reduction. It gives him the armor shred, which is great utility for the team. So I'm pretty sure he goes Cleaver. He might go like Boy the Ruined King Cleaver. I guess it depends on what he's going to do. Let me look here real quick. I know he goes Cleaver. I don't think he goes Death's Dance. Maybe he just goes straight into tank items after that. Frozen Mallet, that's it. Yeah. So that stops people from being able to get away from him, and it allows him to kite people better. Yeah, and the health scales really well with his Mega Gnar. Gives him some attack damage. His attack damage really doesn't matter that much because most of his damage is going to come from that hyper. Okay, yeah, so it's just Cleaver, Frozen Mallet, then tanky stuff, right? Gargoyle, Stoneplate, Randuin's, Thornmail, all that stuff. Yeah, so he's just a pest. He's really good early, has lots of harassment, doesn't use mana, you know, has 6 different abilities that he can throw at people. So he just has a ton of tricks up his sleeve, has a ton of raw power, great split push pressure, great team fight, excellent flanking off a teleport. They did knock 30 HP off of him, but it doesn't matter. I mean, there might be, like I said, some corner cases like a Renekton might be able to blow him up. I mean, if Jarvan gets AD, like runes or something, maybe he could challenge him at level 2, but I still think that if you just play a little bit more cautious early on, if you go like Doran Shield or something, people still just aren't going to be able to mess with you. So yeah, that's what makes Gnar really good. Now, he can't flex like Jarvan, but he could potentially be an even better top laner than Jarvan. I think he's probably a pretty good pick at a Jarvan because you can't pin him in level 6 because he can jump out. And he's going to be able to just sit there and just rain harassment on you the whole time. So I still think Gnar is really tough to deal with. Expect to see Gnar picked or banned almost every game, I would imagine. Jarvan's definitely pick or ban every game. Okay, so who else do we have? We got Maokai here. Maokai's the only one who does significant magic damage. I guess Gnar does do magic damage, right? His hyper's magic. Yeah, bonus magic damage. So he does some decent magic damage up top. Maokai is going to do even more. A lot of Maokai's power is in his flexible nature. You can play him top or you can play him jungle. Whereas Gnar, you can't really play Gnar in the jungle. So if you pick Gnar, they know you're going top, but they can't do anything about it because he's the best top laner. So that's why I put him at number 2. But Maokai is still the second best flex person. If I could ever memorize the alphabet here, that'd be delightful. There we go. Now Maokai, I believe he got a couple of nerfs a few patches ago. I think it was to his sapling toss. But he's still a premier top laner, so he's just super tanky. He's very difficult to deal with. He has sustain in lane. He has good percentage-based health off of his sapling. That's right. You have to level up the sapling now to get to the 16% scaling is what it was. Okay, which isn't that big of a deal. It's okay. I still think you max Bramble Smash first. Very similar to Jarvan. It's got okay range, not quite as far as Jarvan 77 or 770. This is what it should be. It should be about 600, but it's 770. But as far as efficiency, it's only 50 mana and does 250 damage, which is good. It's on a 5-second cooldown, and it has a little knockback and slow, so it's got some pretty good utility to it. Twisted Advance, this is how you latch onto people, so if you W, you get onto them, and then you Bramble Smash him backward 300 units, and boom, there's your gank. So he's one of the best sort of lanes to gank and kill. So he has that kill pressure top lane. Jarvan kind of has it if he lands the flag and drag combo. Gnar doesn't have it as much. Like, you know, if you turn into Mega Gnar and slam him into the wall, maybe you can get him. But Gnar basically just has some really mild slows. He doesn't have anything that can really stick to him like Maokai. Because if a gank comes in and Maokai gets that W on you, you're basically dead. You're not getting away. His E obviously does percentage-based damage. It's great for scouting. So really high damage, great for scouting. Gives you an extra slow. So it's pretty decent. You're not going to be able to cast it a lot, but you will be able to get it off sometimes. And then Nature's Grasp, very low cooldown, huge team fight presence. I mean, this can completely swing a team fight by itself. It does pretty nice damage and roots people for quite a long time. So very good combo with Jarvan. So if you get Maokai and Jarvan on your team, you can run Jarvan in the jungle, Maokai top, and then, you know, Jarvan dunks 3 people, Maokai Nature's Grasp them, and they're just going to be locked up forever. So very, very good, very powerful, and he's basically all magic damage, which is really nice compositionally, and that's why he's up so high too. Because if you run, if you want to run like a Lucian in the middle, which I still think Lucian's going to be picked some in the middle, I don't like that compositionally right now, but it does give you that option of running an AD middle if you want, whether it's Lucian, Zed, Talon, you know, whatever in the middle. I don't expect to see a lot of Talon, but you will see some Lucian, and you might see some Zed occasionally. But it just gives you a little bit more flexibility. And you could run an AD jungle Ezreal. So, you know, you could run like Maokai top, Ezreal jungle, and then you have your ADC bot, and then just an AP mid laner, and that would give you some good balance. So Maokai is the premier AP top laner that I would run right now, and he would allow you to run something like an Ezreal jungle. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, you know, like, I don't know if you'd do it first rotation, but you'd see like an early rotation Maokai, either first pick. If, let's say like you ban Jarvan and then you either first pick Maokai or you get him after the first rotation. You get him early, and then in the second round of the draft, you could pick up Ezreal at the very end or something like that, and then flex Ezreal into the jungle if you wanted to. So I think that's that's one thing that makes him really strong, is he would enable that jungle Ezreal, who I think is going to be pretty strong right now out of the jungle. Okay. Fiora, I think Fiora's back. I gave her some massive buffs. They gave her an increase in movement speed, and they gave her extra movement speed in the victory zone. I definitely think we're going to see some Fiora. Fiora is the premier split push hard carry top laner. So, especially if you want to run some kind of utility champion bottom. So if you want to run Ashe or Varus, or if you want to run utility in the middle, like maybe for some reason you want to run like a, I don't know, like a Zillion or even Orianna's kind of utility in the middle, then Fiora can help fill those gaps in with the damage. So she's the best split pusher. No one's going to match her. Once she gets 3 items, it's over. She can split through anybody. And she's very good against tanks. And this has been her thing for a really long time. So the reason for this is her Duelist Dance, which is whenever you pop a Vital, it does 2% plus 4.5% per 100 bonus AD, which is huge because she gets quite a bit of bonus AD. So, you know, in the mid game, once you get like 200 bonus AD, you'll get your, I was going to say Cleaver, but I don't think she gets Cleaver. She gets Hydra. You'll get your Hydra, and yeah, she does Hydra, Cleaver, and maybe Death Stance if you go double lifesteal. I think it's Hydra Cleaver is her main thing. Like I said, I'm not a grandmaster with any of these champions. I just think I understand the meta pretty well and what you're going to see and sort of how champions function and why teams will pick them. But I may not know exactly what their most current build path is. Yeah, it's Hydra, Cleaver. I would probably do Death Stance with that, honestly. It gives you so much extra lifesteal to get through the Grievous Wounds. Yeah, you might see Gauge on her. Some people are going more Trinity. This does reinforce her split push theme. So I guess you could go Hydra Trinity. That does give you a little bit of move speed. It does give you the Phage. You need something with Phage in it so that you can stick to people easier. That's really, really important. So if you don't want Cleaver, you could go Trinity. And that gives you higher dueling power, better burst. But at the cost of losing the utility, and you lose some health off of it. So you lose the armor shred and you lose the health. But if you're not against the tank, so if you're going to be splitting against like a Gnar or something, you might see her go Trinity instead. But either way, once she gets these 2 items, and like maybe one other item, either Death Dance or Mercurial Scimitar or something like that, you're just not going to beat her in splitting. Looks like more and more people are going Trinity. What, are they not against the tank in this? Is that what it is? I think that's when you would not do that. Well, they were against the tank and she got Trinity anyways. I don't know. Either way, she does a lot of percentage damage, and it gives her a lot of extra movement speed for 1.5 seconds. That's huge that she gets this like up to 50% bonus movement speed. And it heals her for quite a bit. Now, I have heard people say that Bramble Vest is a super hard counter to Fiora, and that's why they're giving her these buffs back, because they want her to be in the meta as an answer to tanks. And they're reverting some of these nerfs because Bramble Vest was invented after the nerfs were put down. So Bramble Vest is good. So this builds in a Thornmail, of course, but you can just spend 900 on a Bramble and leave it in your inventory and still be very effective. So it reflects 20 magic damage and gives you Grievous Wounds for 1 second. All right, so it looks like this would shut down her healing, and it would reflect a bunch of damage back and just make it really hard for her to fight. But you have to remember, this is being hit by a basic attack. Basic attack. And I think a lot of people are overlooking this with Fiora. What's the main way that you proc Vital? With your lunge. Okay, so you dash forward, and then you pop somebody, and it pops their vital. So it does this physical damage, does a lot of extra bonus AD damage, and it procs the vital. And you know what? This is not a basic attack. Okay, this is an ability that, by the way, is on a really low cooldown. So this is what you max first on Fiora. So when you're level 12, this is basically going to be on a 5-second cooldown. So you can go in and just harass these tanks with lunge or Bramble Vest. You don't have to hit them back if you don't want to, right? So you can just lunge in, pop vital, use your movement speed, walk back out. Okay, it's up again, lunge in, pop vital, walk back out. And that's really good harass because it's going to do a lot of true damage. It's going to do all this damage, and it's going to heal you. And it applies on hit effects. So if you want to go for that Trinity Force build, right? If you want to do that, then you can get Sheen, and it would proc Sheen as well. So that's potentially really good. Like I could see a Fiora going for something. I mean, you could go like Tiamat Sheen or something like that if you wanted to early on, and that would be really nice. You'd have your wave cleared, plus you'd have your extra lunge. And I think that's a build, something like that. I don't know if that would be exactly what it is, but something like that I think can work around Bramble Vest to make it to where it's not that much of a problem. Either way, even if you lunge in, pop the vital, you're still going to get the health off the vital. You're going to get the full health, and then you can start attacking them. You can do the standard attack, use blade work to reset your auto attack timer, attack again, and still cut through them and do some pretty decent damage. So it's not going to stop your healing, okay, off of your vitals because you're going to be lunging to proc it. This is instant. This isn't overtime. You get this health instantly when you proc it. So the Grievous Wounds is not going to matter until you get a lot of lifesteal and you're auto-attacking her a lot, or unless you're in your victory zone and you're attacking somebody after you proc all 4 vitals. So I don't think Bramble Vest counters her as hard as I've heard some analysts say. I think it's okay against her, but I think that these buffs are going to make her really, really strong. So once she gets those 2 or 3 items, she's going to be able to split past anybody, and she's a real terror. And she's hard to run down because she can riposte crowd control, and she can dash away over walls or whatever. So I think it's going to be really hard to deal with her. So I mean, she may even deserve to be higher up this list. It depends on the player, and it depends on the team comp. Obviously, you're giving up a tank top lane, so you have to run a tank in the jungle. And, you know, that's not going to let you run a hyper carry bottom as much because you're going to be missing a tank. So it's going to be a lot more dangerous to run like a Twitch or a Kog'Maw or something like that because you're not going to have as much peel because Fiora obviously doesn't have peel. So you would have to either run a tank support or a really good peeler support like Janna, and probably a peeler mid like maybe Talia. So it can be done, and you will see it done, but some teams just may not like have the players to pull it off, or they may not feel as comfortable with the composition. So I think you're definitely going to see it out of the Koreans, and you might see it out of some American and European teams. I don't know a ton about China or other regions, but you will see Fiora at this tournament, and she will be powerful, okay? I just don't think she's going to be as ubiquitous as these other picks because she doesn't flex, and the fact that she's not a tank is going to make some compositions a little harder to pull off, but I think you'll definitely see her. Then finally, I think Shin's going to make a comeback as well. How long is this? I don't want this video to be too super long, but yeah, it's going to be super long. I got to speed it up a little bit. Shin, if you just think about Shin, he does some pretty good magic damage. And the reason that I think he's going to make a comeback is because a lot of the other tanks just recently got nerfed to some extent. So Gragas, I don't think you're going to see Gragas top. I don't think you're going to see Galio top anymore. Gragas got some pretty big nerfs. He still is good, but I think you'll see him in the jungle more so than top. And then Galio can get ganked and killed pretty easily. Shin's relatively safe. It's hard to get him because he can just Shadow Dash away. But he's really powerful, and I like him because he also split pushes very well. So I think he splits better than Jarvan. I think he potentially even splits better than Gnar later in the game. So I don't think he can keep up with Fiora late game. He does block a lot of her stuff with his Spirit Refuge, but I don't think he can keep up with Fiora. But he is a really good split pusher, especially if you get an early Tiamat and then eventually turn that into a Titanic Hydra. That's a really good build. So He has excellent team fight pressure, obviously, great global presence with his ult and his teleport, so he's, you know, one of the best global champions out there. Excellent split push, excellent global, really good laning phase, pretty good damage, nice mixed damage. He does quite a bit of magic damage off of his Twilight Assault. So overall, I think he's strong. I think we'll see Shen. I think he'll be kind of your potentially third string tank. So I expect to see Jarvan banned all the time. And if a team gets Maokai, Maokai will probably be banned a lot too. If a team does get Maokai, you know, maybe they want to flex him into the jungle after they see their composition, then you can pull Shen in or something like 4th or 5th pick. So I don't think he's going to be super hotly contested, but I think you'll see him, especially if the other tanks get banned. And once you get a lot of visibility. So I think he might have a hard matchup against Gnar and Jace, like really strong early harassment. I'm not sure, but I think he does, and that's probably why you don't see him a lot right now. But I think we'll see him. I think he's really powerful, especially with hyper carries like Twitch, like Kog'Maw, because you can ult onto him and you have really good protection. So I think his protection is about as good as Maokai, but he's better at splitting than Maokai, and he has better global pressure, although he has less team fight presence than Maokai. And I think he's definitely has better global presence than Jarvan, better split push than Jarvan, but probably a slightly weaker team fight. Okay, so that's the major 5. Other ones real quickly that I think you'll see. I think you'll see Jace, probably primarily out of Korean teams. They did nerf Gnar a little bit, and I think Jace might be able to all-in him at level 2 now. We'll see. The problem with Jace is he falls off really hard late game if you don't get very far ahead. He is very good in a poke comp. So, you know, if you have something like a Talia middle and maybe a Kog'Maw bottom, you could run him. It's kind of a poke comp, but he's very oppressive, very powerful early on. He dies pretty easily to ganks, though. Like, he does have some tricks to get out, but he's a lot weaker to ganks than most of these other champions on here. Maokai is also somewhat weak to ganks, but he doesn't scale as hard as some of these other champions. So if he's, you know, it's going to be a fast push, like try to close out the game quickly type of comp if you have Jace. So, you know, you would see him sometimes with Caitlyn in the past. You might still see Caitlyn as AD carry, like, but you might see him teamed up with like Trist, Jace, and maybe Talia or something like that. Just like really hard zone control, like crush the game, take out those towers, and take over the map. So we might see him. Rumble is the best kind of really heavy AP damage top laner. He's very susceptible to ganks. He's very good at team fighting. So he'd be great to pair with Jarvan, so you can hold people in place and just drop the ult on top of them. So he's great in a wombo combo team if you have like Jarvan on your team, or maybe Ken in middle, maybe Varus or Ashe. If you hold people in place, he can drop his ult on top of them. So you might see him in some comps, particularly if you have AD in your mid lane. You might see people run him top lane. So he's going to obviously deal a lot more damage than Maokai, but at the same time, he doesn't have as much utility or tankiness about him. So you'll see some Rumble. I think you'll definitely see some Rumble for sure. Jax is another one who's been gaining a lot of popularity. I personally don't get it. I think he gets slaughtered in the laning phase by most champions unless he gets camped by the jungler. I think maybe that was a product of people were just too scared, or they just like Fiora wasn't quite strong enough, so they went with Jax. But now that Fiora's been buffed, I feel like she's just much better than Jax is. I feel like she has a lot more utility. If you kill somebody in a team fight with Fiora, that victory zone, you basically win the whole... If anybody dies, you don't even have to be the one who's killing blow. You just pop one vital, and if the person dies, the fight's over, because your whole team's going to heal to full. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe we'll see more Jax. I just feel like he takes a while to get warmed up. He's a very, very good split pusher. I'm not sure who wins between Fiora and Jax at, like, you know, 3 items. I think that's a pretty heavy skill matchup, because I feel like obviously his Counter-Strike can, you know, block her normal attacks, but she can also riposte the stun on it if she gets it. If she ripostes the stun, she's definitely going to win. I would put my money on Fiora, like a really good Fiora player versus Jax. I think Fiora is going to win. I think she has way more pressure in lane. I think it's a skill matchup. I think it's tough, but I think Fiora wins the split push, and I think she has more utility about her, and I think she's better against tanks. That riposte is just so strong at stopping crowd control. So we'll see. I mean, you might see Jax. He's going to be the other like hyper carry split pusher. I think he's going to beat out Camille. Camille just has too many problems. They've just nerfed her too many times. You might still see some Camille, but I feel like if you see her, it might be if Fiora's banned and people just don't want to play Jax. They might run Camille, but you might see some Jax. But I would much rather see Fiora most of the time. Galio's another one you could see top lane. He's been nerfed quite a bit. He's a bit tougher in the long lane, especially ever since they took away the Doran Ring mana regeneration. He has some mana problems. So that's primarily why you don't see him top, because in mid lane he can get blue and solve those problems until he gets some more items. So I don't think you're going to see him top. Like, he might get flexed top if people pick him with the intention to go mid, and then like he runs into a really bad matchup mid lane like Lucian or something like that. They might flex him over to top and then run something else against the Lucian middle. So you might see him top lane, but like I said, I think the Doran Ring nerfs, in addition to not being able to have blue buffs up there, is really going to hurt him in a lot of matchups. He doesn't fare particularly well into like Gnar, Fiora. He's got some bad matchups up there. Cho'Gath is another one. I really think that Cho's probably going to disappear off this patch because of the way they changed Gargoyle Stoneplate. I think that just crushes his ult, and it needed to be crushed. It was overpowered. He's very susceptible to ganks. People didn't even pick him. Like, they weren't even playing him that much when I saw before, even before the changes to Gargoyle. So you might occasionally see him, but once again, it's going to be like, you know, if Jarvan and Maokai are banned and you just looking to flex something early. So you could put him in the jungle, you could put him top lane, but I don't think we're going to see him that much. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the jungle here really quick. And then we got to pick it up, move a bit faster here. Okay, so jungle, what you want to see is tanky engaged champion, something with really fast clear, creative pathing and gank routes. And really nice objective control. So, number one you're going to see is Jarvan. I've talked a lot about Jarvan. I could have sworn I've already put these in here like several times. Come on, bro. I've already talked about Jarvan several times. Super powerful. Maokai, same deal. He can go top or jungle, and that's what makes that's part of what makes them very strong. Is they allow you a lot of tactical visibility. It allows you to sort of shroud what your intention is in terms of composition. Okay, so Sejuani is the other one. Sejuani might be the best overall jungler right now. She can't be flexed to top because she has too many mana problems. But part of what makes her really strong is she just has awesome utility, and she's very difficult to kill. I think she's probably better than Maokai. I don't think she's better than Jarvan in the jungle. She doesn't have the same kind of early game presence. But she does do magic damage, which is definitely relevant over the physical damage of Jarvan, that is. So people might prefer to run her over Jarvan, even if Jarvan's up, if they want to run something like Lucian middle. But yeah, one of the big things is her permafrost. Anything that does melee damage applies this frost to people, and then being able to stun people for 2 seconds, that's very spammable on multiple targets. And just having a ton of just slows and disruption, and being able to initiate fights. So Jarvan can initiate fights, obviously, with his ult. Maokai isn't so great at it. Like, you can do your ultimate, but it moves so slowly that a lot of champions will be able to disengage. But Glacial Prison's only 120-second cooldown. You throw it, start a fight. It's awesome. You can get double permafrost breaks on people for a lot of extra damage. You know, it's like 40% of their max health. If you hit them with the Glacial, auto-attack them, and then I think stack 3 more permafrost and freeze them again, I think you can get double break on them. So she's just really good, especially if Jarvan's banned. She would be the next best engage out of the jungle role. So expect to see Sejuani a lot because Jarvan's going to be banned almost every game, and then she's going to be sort of next in line if you need heavy engage in your jungle slot. So I think you'll definitely see that a lot. Gragas is another one who can engage from the jungle slot. He's very similar to Sejuani, but I think the recent nerfs to Gragas are just going to make Sejuani almost strictly better. They both have really good wave clear. Sejuani, I think, is just a little bit more more reliable. Like, yes, you do have to hit them with that Ice Bola, but with Gragas, you have to be able to hit them to where they get knocked back into your team. So if they have any kind of dash or flash, I don't know. I guess they can dash or flash Sejuani as well. And so Gragas does have the knockback potential with his barrel as well. So, you know, you can disengage as well as engage. So you can protect your Twitch or something with Gragas a little bit better. I don't know. Gragas might deserve to be number 3. Possibly even number 2. It just depends on the team and sort of how they use him. I do think that the nerfs to Gragas, we'll have to see the width on the belly slam, but it sounded pretty brutal. But all of these are good, really strong picks. I still think Jarvan is a step above the rest for the reasons I've described. But I think Mao, Sej, and Gragas could all be used virtually interchangeably. But forgot to put the numbers on there for you. So I think they could all be potentially pretty strong. Gragas, maybe not. I haven't really tested it a lot live since the nerf, but that's why I have him down lower, is I think that the nerf will bring him down a peg depending on how bad the body slam is now. So I think he'll be slightly below Mao and Sejuani. And then number 5 is Ezreal. I think Ezreal is going to be a force. I have an entire video about it that I just released, so I'm not going to go into super detail about it. Just check it out on my main channel if you want. It's just listed right here under topical guides. It's a pretty long video. It's very detailed, very in-depth. But the gist of it is he has really heavy early game presence. He's very good against tanks later. He's a great siege champion. He has great objective control. Operates very well in an Ardent Sensor meta. So I think he's the premier early game bully that also scales very well into the late game and has excellent itemization. And it's really weird, and it just got developed. A lot of it is because of the changes that they've made in recent patches to lower the cooldown on his Q. What was the other one? That was the big one. And I think, did something give him attack speed? I can't remember. I talk about it in the Ezreal video, so just check that out if you want. But I think he's a real force right now. I think he's super powerful. And they have nerfed a lot of the other early game champions. So they nerfed Elise. They've nerfed Lee Sin a lot this season. Nidalee is still in a pretty rough spot. So if you want early game aggression and Jarvan is banned, there really aren't a lot of other great options. Like Gragas can make some stuff happen early game too, but his nerfs might hurt him. So I expect to see Ezreal. And if you do see Ezreal, you're definitely going to have a tank top lane and potentially a tank or an engage support or Galio middle. Like you might see compositions that'll run like Maokai top, Galio middle, Ezreal jungle, like Twitch bot lane, and Janna or something like that. So then you've got your 2 tank front line with Janna to peel, and then you have basically a 280 carry back line. I think you'll see comps like that. At some point. So I just watch that video if you want to know more about it, but I think we'll see him. I think he'll be powerful. He may not quite be in the top 5, but I think he could be. I think he could deserve it. So some of these other ones could be top 5. I think either Nidalee or Elise or Lee could take Ezreal's place. They're all similar, right? So they are the early game aggression jungle pick. It's just a question of what do you want as the game progresses. So with Ezreal, you're giving up a little bit of damage early. He's not going to do as much damage as Nidalee or Elise, like levels 3 to 5. He just scales much, much better later into the game. And he has excellent sustained damage utility and tower power. So he can knock out towers really quickly. So I think that he just scales far better, and that's why I think teams will opt for him. But you could see Nidalee as well. She has been making a resurgence lately. In some places, she's very good early game, but traditionally she falls off really hard late game because all you can really do is hit people with spears because you're not going to be able to dash in and follow up with your pounce unless you catch them isolated because you're going to die. That's the big thing about Ezreal is that these champions, all 3 of these, have to get close range to finish off their combos to do a ton of damage, right? So they don't do much damage from a distance. Ezreal never has to get close. He can always just poke and auto attack from a distance. That makes him inherently stronger.
Dinner's ready.
Okay, this is gonna be a little bit longer than I thought, so I might have to, eat a little bit. That's right.
Bring down your dishes in your cup.
Okay. Is that right, Sadie? But yeah, so that's the big difference there is that all of these have to melee, which is really bad into tanks and crowd control, which is what you're going to see all over the place in this meta, and Ezreal doesn't. But Nidalee's strength, so she does a lot more damage early on than Ezreal, a decent amount early on. Yeah, obviously she just has a ton of different tricks up her sleeve. Now, one thing I have seen, in the early game at least, one thing that I have seen people doing is using Thene's Unholy Grail, which will give you a lot of extra ability power because you get 225 mana regen when you're in the jungle, plus the 100 off of Athene's, so that's 325.
There's nothing more important to me than my vacation. So when I need to book a hotel...
What the actual hell? Sorry about that. What? League with Kia? Come on, bro. Don't troll. But what I have seen people doing, if you look at pro builds here, Jesus, that's so frustrating. Like, I want to, like, not ad block that because I want to support them, but these ads are just getting so invasive. So here you go. So it gives you an extra 5 ability power per 25%. So that's 20 per 100. So that'll be 65 extra ability power. So you're going to have 95 ability power if you just go jungle item Athene. So you have 95 ability power on this bad boy. That's really good. Obviously in the jungle, you're going to do a ton of extra damage off of your spears. Just everything scales with AP on her. That's a ton of damage. And then because you're doing so much damage, whenever you pop up and use your heal, it's going to heal for a ton. You know, you're going to get like an extra 200 heal out of it. So I think that's some new technology that people have been doing with Nidalee. Like I said, I haven't studied it that much. But that is some new technology that people have been working with. They just did increase the AP ratio on your heal, I believe. Yeah, to up to 65%. So that's a pretty big heal. I mean, that's like a 400-something heal once you pop out and do Primal Surge. So late game, this would actually give her a bit more utility where she can just like throw javelins at people, you know, hit them for some heavy damage, and then heal for a decent amount. So it turns her into someone who has a little bit of utility where you can poke. That's going to cost a lot of mana, but your Athene's is going to give you some extra mana too. So I think that's pretty cool technology. And then some people are even building Ardent Sensor on her, so you could go something like Athene's Unholy Grail, Ardent Sensor. The heal does give a lot of extra attack speed. Yeah, 60% extra attack speed. So that could be really good in a poke comp. So you could see her poking, and then something you could give that extra attack speed to something like a Kog'Maw while he shreds the towers, or Tristana while she's shredding towers. So it's okay. It's okay. I just don't think she scales as well as Ezreal. So we will see Nidalee. She will be pretty good. You'll probably see people going Athenes. They might go Ardent. You know, if you don't have an Ardent support for some reason, if you're going like you know, Alistar, Braum, or whatever, then she could be a good option out of the jungle that can go Ardent Sensor, be helpful. Elise is another one who is historically been very powerful. She does the most damage of all three of these in the early game, and she does have some utility later with her Cocoon. And so she's going to be really good in like a pick comp. So something with like a LeBlanc historically is really good with Elise. So we'll definitely see some Elise as well. She just once again falls off a little bit in the late game unless you catch people out. So with pick comps, we'll still see Elise. The most recent nerf did a lot to hurt her W early game. So her all-in potential is not nearly as high as it used to be until you get to, you know, like 3 items or so. So should be all right. But I think that, I don't know, you will see her picked, particularly at a Korean team. So you'll see her picked a lot, but I still think that Ezreal's going to be stronger overall. Although she is magic damage as well, so if you run like Jarvan top, Lucian middle, and you need magic damage, then she's a good option there. Lee Sin, you know, we'll see some Lee. I don't expect to see a lot of him. He did get a buff to his shield. He's just not as good as these other 3 early game, and like early game, I guess maybe, but like scaling into the late game, he just doesn't have as much utility. Like, yeah, if you can get around and flank behind people and kick them into your team, she can be really good, or he can be really good, but I just don't think you're going to see as much of him. Like, you might see him from some people, but not as much from others. Cho'Gath, as I explained, he's been nerfed quite a bit. Particularly the most recent one with Stoneborn Pact is going to hurt him quite a bit. So I don't expect to see him a lot, but you might see him occasionally. Ivern just got a buff. You might see him from some Western teams, but I doubt it. You know, if you need Ardent Censer from the jungle position, you might see him, but I think that Nidalee actually would be a better fit for the Ardent Censer Athene's kind of build. All right, let's talk about mid lane. Okay, so mid lane, the most important considerations are wave clear, rotations, AP damage, and objective control. So Orianna is probably going to be the most picked champion. People typically like to pick their mid lane in the first round of picks before the second round of bans. And if you just want a nice, safe, blind pick champion, then Orianna is probably the best one, either Orianna or Syndra. Is not a lot of counterplay to her. She has great wave clear. She's extremely safe. She gets extra resistances off of her ball. She has really good synergy with a lot of these engaged tanks. So, you know, she's really good with Maokai, really good with Galio, Jarvan. Great combos, great ball delivery systems, as the analysts say. So, and pretty good scaling. Percentage-wise, she has a 0.7 on her W. Her ult has a 0.7. So she's not going to do, like, the most, like, sustained damage out there. But she's just a nice, safe pick that's really good in a teamfight composition that also has pretty good wave clear. And pretty good early harassment, too, because you get extra bonus on your autos. So she's just good, solid. You just can't really go wrong with Orianna. And I think that she's going to be probably the most popular pick out of mid lane. Right, so if you pick before your opponent picks, there's a high probability people are going to be picking up Orianna. Okay, that's thinking. I don't like it. No thinking. Might be cooking up a commercial for me here. Syndra's the other one. Syndra was recently nerfed. Her sustained damage was nerfed, but not her all-in. And that's really what's important. So Syndra has really long ranges. She has a great, basically point-click stun. They do have some time to react to it, but, you know, a good Syndra player will hit that stun quite a bit. And so she's great with ganks. So, you know, if your Jarvan's coming up for a gank and you get that stun off, then they're almost certainly going to die. There we go. So really high burst damage, point click. Just erase people, so good at picking off enchanters, good at picking off AD carries. So really low cooldown. So yeah, she's just really long range, really high damage. Can't really go wrong with Syndra either. There are not a lot of really strong counter picks to her that outrange her. Like Echo's a good pick into her because he can ult once she ults and cancel the damage. Kassadin's really good into her because she's just not going to have enough damage to crack through him once he gets rid of the H's with his passive and his shield that he gets off a Q. So Kassadin's a really good pick into her. So there's more counterplay to her than Orianna probably, but she'll still be picked. She's still really strong. Next one's Taliyah. I personally think Taliyah should be the #1 pick, but I don't think she's going to be. She will be picked a lot though. So expect to see quite a lot of Taliyah. And the reason that I like Taliyah, so she could be #1. I think she should be #1. I'm just not sure if she will be. And I'm not sure why that is. There might be more counter picks to Taliyah than others. But she has excellent objective control with her ultimate. She can zone people off of towers, off of Baron, off of Dragon. She can roam with it. So she roams a lot better than Orianna or Syndra. Really high sustained damage with her Q in team fights. I mean, it's 442 base damage with a 117 ratio on non-threaded areas, which is massive. Huge burst damage. If you hit people with Seismic Shove and Unraveled Earth, it's just huge. Unraveled Earth is also great zone control, so it helps peel off of either you or your AD carry. Just makes it very difficult to get around and mess with her. So she just has excellent poke, excellent all-in burst damage, great zone control, great roaming, great scaling. There's virtually nothing wrong with her. She is kind of a mana hog early before you complete your Morellos, but you can just get blue buffs for that. So, or just be a little bit more conservative with your harass. And I think she'll be fine. So I think Taliyah is extremely strong right now. So I would expect to see a lot of Taliyah. I still think a lot of teams are going to pick Ori and Syndra, and that's probably a mistake. I think Taliyah should be picked a lot. LeBlanc is probably going to be banned most of the time. Have her down here because there are some regions and teams that can't really play her to her full potential. And so I don't think you're going to see her all the time. But I do think for champions like Faker, Bjergsen, you know, some of these other marquee mid laners around the world, if they get a hold of LeBlanc, it's going to be really scary. So I think that she's going to be banned a lot, and if she's not banned, she's going to be picked a lot. She does insane single target burst damage, the highest of any champion on this list, I think. I mean, I think it's probably more than Syndra. And she's just really hard to catch. So she can move so far, and she has so many different tricks up her sleeve. She has really good gank potential with her chains, nice crowd control, nice damage, and if she gets ahead, she's just virtually impossible to stop. Because your peeling and your line is not going to do that much to her because she can just get away. So she's going to kill the squishy and get away with it. Really good roaming. So yeah, she's very, very hard to play, even at the top level of play. But I think for people that can play her, I think she'll be super strong. Corki's the other one on here. I think he's going to be the premier sort of early game bully. He's already picked quite a lot. And now that they've nerfed Lucian and Cassiopeia, I think you'll see him a lot more, particularly because of Lucian. So, first of all, like his whole thing is his auto attacks do magic damage mostly. And so he can itemize into AD carry type of items, but do a lot of magic damage. And so that means that he's going to have super high sustained damage on his autos. And that means also that he does a ton of damage to towers. So unlike someone like Cassiopeia that does really high sustained damage, he does high sustained damage and really heavy damage to towers because a lot of it's wrapped into his auto attacks. So he has pretty good wave clear, albeit expensive with his Phosphorus Bomb. His Valkyrie makes him very safe, so he's safer than most of these other champions too. With the exception of maybe LeBlanc in mid lane because he has a dash. None of these other champions have dashes. So he's very safe. Great harassment early. Pretty good scaling because, like I said, people just build Trinity, like Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon on him, just like an AD carry. And he'll put out damage like an AD carry later in the game. So great safety early on, great harass early that transitions into a beast late game in terms of sustained damage. Yeah, people like Rapid Fire on him too. I guess people are going, what, Trinity Rapid? That's weird. Sork Boots, definitely. I thought people would get Infinity Edge more. I guess they don't like Static Shiv on him. I don't know. Anyways, I think he's going to be a force. Also, he has the package, which can catch people off guard and is really good for roaming and killing people. Great wave clear with his Gatling gun. So, I think you'll see Corki a lot. I think he'll be really strong, and I think you'll see him with like 2 tank lineups. So if you have, you know, Sejuani jungle, Maokai top, then you'll see, you know, Corki middle, Tristana bottom, and then like Rakan or something like that. So if you have a 2 tank setup, I think he's going to be a really good pick there. Cassiopeia is another one. You could still see her in mid lane, and you will still see her. I'm not entirely convinced that she's going to be a top 5, though, and the reason is she already kind of has a tough early game, especially after they nerfed her the mana on her E, and now they've nerfed her damage on her poison like astronomically early on. Really, really bad. I talk about this in my most recent patch notes. And so, yeah, like late game, when she gets 3 or 4 items, yeah, she'll still do a lot of damage, but potentially even more damage than she did before. But she doesn't get a lot of AP early to make up for that ratio, right? She's going to be getting Tear the Goddess, like Rod of the Ages, Morello. And so it's going to take her, you know, until like her 3rd or 4th item. You know, she's not going to make up that damage until like 25 minutes in the game, at least. And she's very vulnerable. She doesn't have boots. She's very easy to gank. So she still is a late game powerhouse monster, but I think this is going to hurt her early game quite a bit. And I think that'll make her a liability in some comps. So she's great at shredding tanks, but I think it's a problem. Galio, I think you'll still see Galio middle a decent amount, especially if people run Ezreal jungle. Or like a Fiora top. So this would enable Fiora top. If you run like Galio middle and then like Maokai jungle, then you could go Fiora top. So if you're running either an AD or like a damage dealing jungler, or you're running or if you run Nidalee in the jungle. So you could run Nidalee in the jungle and then like Maokai top and Galio mid lane or something like that. So he does have good wave clear. He is tanky. He does have some good crowd control in his kit. He is more susceptible to ganks because people will just step in front of his Justice Punch and then he has a harder time getting away. So I don't know. I think you'll see him. I think he's kind of a good, safe, blind pick too. Like Lucian might be able to terrorize him a little bit early, but I think because he can itemize into Abyssal Mask, that sets him up really well against a lot of other AP mid laners. But he doesn't do a ton of damage, so I still think that damage is most important in this slot. Because I think you'll see tanks in top and jungle a lot of the time. And so I think you need damage here, and that's why I don't think you'll see him. So you will see him sometimes, but I don't think he's going to be like ultra popular. I think he'll be okay popular. I don't know. You might see him more. You'll see him. He'll be all right. He'll be all right. Azir is another one that I think is... I think a lot of people are sleeping on him, especially after this Cassio nerf. I really do think that late game, it's possible that he might output more damage, especially to tanks, than Galio does. Or not Galio, than Cassiopeia does. He's certainly safer than she is because he can dash pretty far away with his Shurima Shuffle. And he has his ultimate that is a lot more reliable than Cassiopeia's and pushes people back and knocks them away. So... like, Azir's problem is that he can get bullied out early and he doesn't have a great early game. But, you know, they just nerfed Lucian, who's the premier sort of mid-lane, early game bully. He could be all right into something like Talia. I guess Talia is kind of an early game bully too. Maybe Orianna he'd be all right into. I'm not really sure when you would pick him. But I feel like his scaling is really good. He just got a buff to his ultimate damage, so it does even more late game. And, you know, if he can just get to the point where he gets Nashers plus Leandries plus Rylai's, I think he becomes super strong. So I don't think you'll see him a lot, but I think you'll see him some in certain matchups. And I'm not sure what those will be. Like I said, it might be Orianna. Just things that can't pressure him a lot early on. You might see him some more. Lucian just took a hit. You still might see Lucian. I'm not a huge fan of Lucian. I think he's very gimmicky. I think running AD in the mid lane really hurts your composition overall because it lowers, it reduces the options that you have in other lanes. Like if you run Lucian, you can't really run Fiora top lane. So you'll see him. I just think Corki doesn't do quite as much early on in terms of harassment, but I think Corki's a pretty good early game harassment AD carry type of champion. Because he does magic, I think it's less of a liability on your team comp. So we'll still see Lucian, but I think you'll see less of him than you did because he's a lot less safe early to mid game, a lot more susceptible to ganks. Kassadin is another powerhouse. We'll see Kassadin some. He's very good in Ascendra in particular. I think he's really good into LeBlanc. So he definitely has some good matchups. You know, the AP, the extra damage the extra damage reduction that he gets off of his passive, the 15%, coupled with his Q giving him that shield, makes him very, very difficult for burst mages to deal with. And he has really high mobility and really high scaling on his damages. So he doesn't have a lot of wave clear. He doesn't have a lot of objective control. He does roam very well. So I think you'll see him, but I don't think he's quite top tier. I think you'll see him more as a counter pick. Okay, a couple more. We got 80 carry here. We're doing all right with time. Doing all right. So let's talk about 80 carry real quick. Okay, so 80 carries need good synergy with the Energizer build. That's Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon, Warlord's Bloodlust. That's the most powerful combination right now you can get with the vast majority of 80 carries, and you want someone who's going to be able to do that well. So that means they're going to have usually extra attack speed somewhere in their kit. Okay. Good synergy with Ardent Sensor. So once again, if it's someone that attacks a lot, has good attack speed, they're probably going to be really good with that. So if they're good with Energizer, they're probably good with Ardent Sensor. Good wave clear is nice. As always, it just helps you from getting pushed in a tower. And it's really nice if you want to have someone like a Fiora on your team to split push. Having that extra wave clear is going to be good for stalling it out so they can't engage on you 4v5 in a tower. Or 5v4 rather in a tower. And objective control and utility. So someone who can take towers really quickly or take barons really quickly is also a plus. Okay, so number 1 here is Tristana. I expect Tristana to be first pick banned the entire tournament. She's right up there with like Jarvan level, overpowered. And the reason for this is very similar to Jarvan. She just has a lot of excess power in her abilities, starting with her ultimate. So if we look at her ult, they slapped her on the wrist with her explosive bomb this patch. It's not going to matter that much. A little bit, sure, but she's still so strong. So let's look at this thing. So it's a 100-second cooldown, not even 120, 100 seconds. So it's basically always going to be up, even starting at level 1. It does 300 damage, level 1. 300 with 100% AP. Now, you're never going to build AP on her, most likely, but still, 300 damage on an 80 carry. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, let me... I haven't looked at Varus and Ashe in a while. Let's just see some of these marquee, like, engage, you know, like, champions that should be casters, that should do heavy damage on their abilities. 100 damage. Varus does 100 damage with his ult. It's on a 110-second cooldown, so it's longer than hers. Obviously, it has the crowd control and does different stuff to it. But I'm just showing you just, like, difference here, like 100 damage. All right, let's look at Ashe. Another very ult-centric champion. 200 damage. She does 300. I mean, let's look at something like, I don't know, Syndra. I haven't even looked at this yet, but let's look at Syndra. So, like, the marquee, like, we're doing a lot of damage with our ultimate. Now, hers is going to have scaling on it as well. Magic damage per sphere is 90. You can realistically get, like, 5 of those, I guess. So she's going to do more. Syndra's going to do more. So it's not, like, the most dangerous ult in the game. But still, like, incidentally just happens to do 300 damage level 1 with, like, 0 AP. It's just bonkers. Like, that means that at an all-in fight level 6, you're just going to slaughter most other 80 carries. It's not even going to be close. And it also knocks people back a really long distance. And not just one person, but everybody who's close within a certain radius. It doesn't tell you what that radius is, but it's pretty decent. And it has pretty good range on it. So it's a low cooldown, like, massive peel ability that can knock back multiple targets, can blow them all back like a Janna ult. If they're packed close together, and it just happens to, like, execute people and just do, like, an obscene amount of damage for all ends at level 6. Okay, so that's one of her abilities. Her Q, you know, late game, 110% extra attack speed. I mean, a dagger is 15% for 300 gold. That's 2,200 gold worth of attack speed on her Q that lasts for 7 seconds, which is quite a long time in a team fight. That's like, you know, just a casual extra 7 kills worth of attack speed on her ability there. Rocket jump. Get to jump 900 range away. That's like double flash range jump. And if you get any sort of assists in a team fight, then it resets. You don't even have to get assists. You can just hit someone, you know, 4 times or whatever to get this charge fully maxed, and then you also get it. And it says takes down champion. A takedown is defined by either a kill or an assist. So a kill, an assist, or you just hit people 4 times with explosive charge, or you hit a tower 4 times with explosive charge, and it comes right back up. So it's ridiculously safe. And it does pretty decent damage, too. I mean, if you jump on somebody for 260 and you slow them by a lot, that's pretty good damage. So excellent escape and utility. And then this thing right here, you know, you're doing a total of, so you throw this on them, it's just a point click, not a skill shot. You do an extra, you know, if you just sit there and auto attack with somebody, it's extra 220 damage plus 200% of your bonus attack damage. So basically, it's just almost impossible to sit there and trade with her, just auto attack early game, because she's going to pop her Q, she's going to throw an explosive charge on you. She might even jump on you with her W, because who cares, it's going to reset. And it just does, like, an obscene amount of damage. So she can definitely sit there and fight you close combat if she wants to. most other AD carries, and she's going to kill you. She's going to win because this does so much extra damage. Or she can just hang out in the back with some of the longest range in the whole game, especially once she levels up, and just peel with her ult and jump away with her W. So she's just like a ridiculous combination of really high sustained damage, pretty high burst damage for early all-ins, really high safety with 2 escapes effectively with her W and her R, and she takes down towers super hard because this also applies to towers. So there's just virtually nothing she doesn't do. So she's pretty good with ganks early because of the W, so she has a respectable early game, one of the best late games in the whole game, excellent at tower pushing, super safety. There's just nothing wrong with this champion. Like, she's just way, way, way too powerful right now with these abilities, so she needs to get nerfed much harder than that before she falls off the meta. So expect to see her first pick, first ban, especially because they nerfed Kalista a lot. Kalista is someone that people might prioritize over Tristana in the past. They might have done in the past because Kalista had such great utility and could bully Tristana out early on. But that's not going to be the case anymore. Triss is first pick, first ban. Now, Xayah is another one who's been creeping up a lot lately, and she's going to benefit from Kalista getting nerfed as well. Now, a big part of Xayah is she's extremely good with Rakan, who's the best competitive support right now also, so she has that going for her. But even by herself, she's really good, especially if Trist is banned. Because she does have quite a bit of safety, and she's really good if people want to dive into her. So she doesn't have chase potential that well. But she's probably one of the best team fighting AD carries if someone is trying to come at you. Right? So if they're trying to run you down and kill you, if a bunch of tanks are running at you or other people running at you, then her E just massacres them. I've talked about this in past videos. Check out my AD carry video if you want to know more about this. But basically her E just does a ridiculous amount of damage. And a lot of it is because each extra feather doesn't do that much less damage. It's less damage than the previous, not than the total. That's very, very important mathematically, and that's different from something like Twitch hitting multiple targets with his ult. So her Blade Caller does a ton of damage, and it scales extremely well with Critical Strike, which she's going to have 80% crit with the Energizer build. And a lot of people are figuring out she's so strong right now because I think a lot of people were building her incorrectly in the past. They were building like Hurricane on her or Blade the Ruined King or all this garbage when she came out. And I was always saying she should go Infinity Edge and she should go all this other stuff. I think people still get Essence Reaver on her. Which her ultimate is powerful, I guess. I mean, I really, really like Infinity Edge on her. But Essence is pretty good too. I mean, I guess most pros are building Essence on her. That's the safe build because it gives you more ultimates. Wraith's going big. Going man mode there. I like that with Infinity Edge. Now, unlike a lot of other AD carries, however, she does have the option of going double big ticket AD items as well. And she doesn't need Static Shiv as much because she already has excellent wave clear with her E. So Static Shiv is good, but this does give her the option of going something like Essence Reaver and then one extra attack speed item and then Infinity Edge. So she can go single attack speed item instead of double, and that's going to give her a lot more power. And the reason you would do that on Xayah over something like a Twitch or a Tristana is because her abilities do so much damage based on the extra AD. I guess Tristana kind of does too if you think about her bombs. But Xayah's abilities have such great scaling, particularly this Blade Caller with bonus AD. And she does get a lot of this based on extra critical strike too. So, you know, the attack speed is nice. It is important, obviously, but she does get her own extra bonus attack speed built into her kit. And this does so much extra damage with bonus AD and with bonus crit that you can get away with it, I think. So, yeah, does anybody do that? Do they get both of them here? Yeah. So Infinity, Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire. People like Rapid Fire because you get energized faster. You get to do that extra just long range, boom, pop attack. And it also works really well with Warlords. Now, some people still go Static Shiv. Yeah, some people go Static Infinity. So it looks like that's what a lot of people do. They'll go Essence Reaver, one attack speed item, and then Infinity Edge. That makes her do massive damage. So you're going to do... okay, so... as you get more crit, you get 20% extra cooldown. 10% cooldown. And her crits give you more mana. Okay, so at 30% crit, you'd get 20% additional. Okay, so that gives you a lot of cooldown reduction, lets you ult more. It's going to let you Blade Caller more in fights, because Blade Caller doesn't have that long of a cooldown. I don't think. It's always like 8 seconds. Yeah, 8 seconds. So, you know, once you get to like 40% cooldown reduction, then it's going to be like 5 seconds. So you can do that multiple times in a fight. So that's really, really powerful. And then obviously having her ult where you jump up and make yourself invulnerable, excellent against Jarvan, excellent against, you know, Ash Arrows, Sejuani Bolas, Rakan trying to jump into you if they have an enemy Rakan. It's just really nice evasion and really nice AoE damage output. So she's kind of like Twitch, but she's a peeler rather than a... so she's going to do a little bit less upfront burst. She's going to be slower than Twitch, but she's much better at peeling than he is. And just like overall team fight burst, she's better against engage, like tanky type of champions. So she's just a more defensive version of Twitch, I think, who has a better early game and better overall wave clear than he does, I think. So she's going to be really strong. I think she'll be like probably the #1 contested AD carry, because I don't think Trist is going to be as contested. Trist is going to be banned. So I have seen people recently take Xayah over Trist. I think that's probably a mistake, but anyway, Xayah is super strong, so you'll definitely see a lot of her. And speaking of Twitch, I think you're going to see Twitch a lot too. And the reason you'll see Twitch or part of it is because you'll have these double or even triple tank compositions that just form a really good wall to make it difficult for enemies to get onto him. And he just scales super well, and people can't bully him early with the Doran Shield build, which he'll almost always start Doran Shield Warlord's Bloodlust now. And he just scales really, really good with Critical Strike. I mean, he gets he has 850 range when he pops his ult, which is huge. If you use the range to its max. In solo queue, people open up with Twitch and his ult like, you know, 300 range away from somebody. They're not going to do that in pro play. They're going to use that 850 range, and it makes it very, very difficult to get to him, to hit him with anything. I mean, he's out of Syndra ult range, I believe, at that point. He's out of like Maokai engage range. He's out of a lot of ranges. He's out of a Jarvan dunk range. So he's really strong. He can sneak up and snowball, like, if he gets ahead, not as easily as he can in solo queue, but it makes it just very difficult to like figure out how to manage team fights with Twitch, because if you don't see him, you really don't want to fight, but you can't sit there and keep holding all of your cooldowns, or the rest of the team's going to kill you. So Twitch can just roll up and stay invisible for up to 14 seconds, and then you've got you know, Jarvan beating on you, you've got Syndra beating on you, or Talia or whatever, and this fight's just going on, and you're just like sitting there, and you're just like, okay, you know, I've got this crowd control ability. Do I go ahead and use this to try to get the Talia? Do I try to peel the Maokai off of my back line? You know, he's trying to eat up my my Tristana, my Xayah, or something like that. And then, like, as soon as you use your cooldowns, Twitch just pops up invisible, hi, and, you know, pops his ult, and then you just know you're screwed, like, because you just used your crowd control, and Twitch is going to blow up your whole team. So he just makes it very, very difficult to manage fights when he's around. So as long as you can kind of protect him early game, and you have a good wall of 2 or 3 tanks for him later in the game, he's very, very difficult to stop. So, and he can build Blade the Ruined King and still be pretty effective, which helps him out early game as well, because his ultimate would apply that blade to everybody. So you can still go for the Bork Blade the Ruined King Hurricane build if you want to, but you can also just straight go like Infinity Edge. I think they would still go Hurricane on him. Probably like Infinity Edge, Hurricane, Rapid Fire? Let's see. Bork Hurricane Infinity Edge is something that you might see too. Yeah, so like this one. What's Prey getting? Prey's just going Infinity Edge, Runins. Yeah. I think especially if you go Doran Shield early, I think you can get away with that. Yeah, just Infinity Hurricane. You want Hurricane for sure, because that applies your poison to everybody in a team fight. I think when you pop your ult and it goes to 850 range, I think it's still like all the extra bolts also go to 850 range, I believe. Does it say? Yeah, it's the same range as your normal attack, I think. Yeah. So it looks like Infinity Hurricane and then sort of your choice after that. You could go, looks like Static Shiv. It looks like virtually nobody goes Rapid Fire on him because he's already going to have such long range with his ult. Some people go Bork. Looks like it's just Infinity Hurricane Static, probably. So, yeah, I think you'll see a lot of him. I think he'll be really strong. Kog'Maw's another newcomer that I think you're going to see a lot more. I've heard analysts talking about him. So he's kind of in the same vein as Twitch, where he's like this hyper carry, super damage dealer. The difference here, he has a couple of different differences. That's terrible phrasing, but he has a few key differences here, right? Where they're going to see him, which is massive. So they know exactly where he is and what he's doing. So he can't like bait people into using their cooldowns like you can with Twitch. I guess Twitch is not baiting them, but it doesn't. It's easier to manage him in a team fight because you know exactly what you're getting. You see him, okay, there he is. We got to kill him. All right, but he has an earlier power spike because I believe. Now, there are all kinds of different builds about Kog'Maw, too. But I believe you can go an early Wit's End with him. It's like a 2,500 gold item. And you'll have this just, like, astronomical power spike once you finish that before other people finish their Infinity Edge. So it's a timing window where he's much stronger than they are. Because his ultimate does so much damage. It's 7%, or not his ultimate. It's basically his ultimate. His W does 7% max health on hit. And that's magic damage. So that means that when you shred their magic resist with your Wit's End, I think Wit's End can take off up to... You never see this item on anybody because it's garbage on like 99% of champions right now. But yeah, it gives you 40% attack speed, 40 on-hit damage, which is massive. You know, it's 1,000 gold worth of damage. And 1,000 gold worth of attack speed. So that right there is worth 2,000 gold. Then you get this extra magic resist. And then every time you hit somebody, you can get up to minus 25 magic resist or magic reduction and plus 25% bonus magic resist. So you can get up to 65 magic resist early on, which is awesome. Defensive stats. I mean, that's going to help you out so much against, you know, something like a Zyra. You're not going to see Brand as much, but it would help you out against Karma, Lulu, which you're probably not going to see a lot of Karma. I do think you'll see a lot of Lulu. But the biggest thing is it lowers that magic resist. And that is for everybody. That's not just you, that's everybody. So your Maokai is going to be doing damage as though they had 25 less magic resist, which is effectively like plus 25% magic damage. It's not quite that mathematically, but it's close. So that's huge. I mean, not only for you, but it's really good for your team overall. And it's really fast. You get it very quickly because it's only 2,500 gold. So at max value, it's 4,100 gold. So yeah, that's really big. So it's 165% gold efficient. I think that's what you either go that or you go Gensu's Rage Blade on him, which is a little bit slower, but it just hits like a truck. It's a massive massive power spike when you finish this bad boy. So this one does 25% attack speed, 35 damage, 50 ability power, 15 on hit. And then it can stack up to 48% extra attack speed, plus 18 attack damage, 24 ability power. And then every other basic attack will trigger your on hits an additional times, and you get the double hit off of the W. Now it's 3,600, so it's one of the most expensive items in the game. But yeah, once you get it fully stacked, it's 5,800 gold efficient, so that's 157% efficient. And this, it doesn't calculate this on hit, which is massive on Kog'Maw. I mean, that's like every 2 hits is going to shred 21% of their max health. So those are the 2 items that I think a lot of Cogs will get. And especially the Wit's End, I think will catch people off because it's just so fast. Yeah, this is what a lot of people are doing. Yeah, if you get it with Hurricane also, the Hurricane bolts will also shred the magic resist off of everybody. I hadn't even thought of that. God, that's disgusting. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Let me see Wits End again here. You can't get 25% per target, can you? Or like plus 25 magic resist per target. The target's resistance by 25 stacks up to 5 times. Okay, so I don't think you can, like, you're not going to get to 75 magic resist with Hurricane if you're hitting 3 people, but I think you can give them all negative 25 magic resist, which is huge if you have like a Sejuani and a Malachi and like a Talia on your team or something, you know, all these magic users. A lot of those tanks do magic damage. And so being able to shred the magic resist off of them is pretty big. And obviously most mid laners are going to do magic damage. So that's huge. I hadn't even thought of that. That's pretty disgusting. Like Hurricane plus Wits End. Because your power spike is so fast. That's 2,500 gold. I think this one's like 2,600. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty big. Like, you can go for the Gensus, like I said, but it's going to be more expensive than Infinity Edge. And one of the big things about COG is that, like I said, going that Wits End, you hit your power spike so much faster, you can just bully the crap out of the lane once you hit that, because it's just such a bizarre item power spike, and it's just a massive single item. Yeah, it looks like that's what a lot of people are doing, actually. They're going Wits, Runins, and then maybe Rapid. I don't like Bork early. I think Bork is good later on him. That's pushing it a bit far, going with the old Gunblade. It's all right on him, but yeah, I think something like a Wits Gensus. That's what I would recommend. I mean, you can go Hurricane as well. Hurricane's going to look like the most popular because whether people rush Gensus or Wits, they're probably going to get Hurricane second. Frozen's okay. Yeah, Kog'Maw is just really weird, and that's why I think you're going to see him there. Not the whole reason, but his itemization, like his power spikes are very different, and he has great synergy with Ardent Sensor supports because it gives him the extra attack speed. I wonder what has the highest win percentage. Most people are going Wits early. See, what do these winning people have? Okay, Wits, Wit. Gensu, Wit, Gensu, Wit. I don't know. I personally think the Wit is the big one because that's so much cheaper. But anyways, so I think that his big thing is he has a unique power spike curve where he can get ahead early by rushing Wits End. He gets the extra attack speed off of this, and he just hits like a truck. You've never seen somebody mow through a team until you've seen a Kog'Maw. Like, Twitch can do it too, I guess, but like Kog'Maw, once he gets a lot of attack speed, and he just starts going off, he's so difficult to deal with once he gets ahead. His ultimate doesn't really matter, but it is good with a poke team. So if you have an Ezreal on your team, or you have like maybe a Talia on your team, or a Nidalee, then he can actually poke out decently with his ult. You know, it only costs 40 mana to start. It does get a bit more expensive, but you can snipe people pretty well from a distance. Costs an additional 40 mana, and he doesn't use a lot of mana with his ability, so you do have some spare mana that you can use to chuck those at people. So if you're really accurate with those, that can be some pretty powerful poke, but yeah, it's a good execute ability now, so it could do up to 360 damage. Which is pretty big. But yeah, I think you're going to see some Kog'Maw. And I think you'll see him... now, he has longer... Well, his range is not quite as long as Twitch's. Where does the range go to? Increase range. It does on hit. Does it say what his range goes to? Oh, here it is. Up to 710. So once again, you can activate this, and then on the back line, he's going to crush people. Now, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't get anything that has cooldown reduction, I don't think. So that he could do this more in a fight. But basically, you want the fight to be over in 8 seconds, because that's how long this is going to last. So kind of like Twitch, you need the fight to end fairly quickly. Okay. But yeah, he's going to be a force. And we'll talk about this, but I think Lulu's going to come back into the meta quite a lot because I think that Lulu is very good with Kog'Maw and very good with Twitch, and she's still pretty good with Tristana too. And Xayah, she's just going to be great in this meta. So I think Lulu is someone that we haven't seen a lot that people might be sleeping on that I think will make a comeback at Worlds. Yeah, but that's like the nastiest lane. Because if you look at Lulu here, I don't want to spend too long on this, but I do think Kog'Maw is something that a lot of people aren't going to predict or expect that much. What?
What's up, bro?
I'm almost done. I gotta finish this, man.
You missed dinner.
Gotta make that money, man.
What do you want of the food? We have meatballs, veggie balls. I know you want mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Peas.
With peas?
And peas.
No, I don't want peas.
Okay.
You know I don't want peas.
I can't remember.
Come on, bro.
Do you want meatballs?
I'll try one of them and see. I don't want to eat that much meat.
They're not very big.
I'll
There's also veggie balls that are really tasty.
I'll do some taters and I don't know, some peanut butter or something. Who knows?
Okay.
That's right. So anyways, the reason that Lulu is so good with Kog'Maw is that she gives the extra attack speed. So unlike Janna gives extra AD, but she gives extra attack speed, and her Pix does a lot of damage, and this is magic damage. So when you're shredding people with Wit's End, that means Pix is going to do even more damage. But it has, like at level 9, 63 base damage. And then it has 15 AP. And so once you get Ardent Censer plus Athene's Unholy Grail, which I think is the best 1-2 punch on her, your Pix is going to do like an extra 100 damage. And then with the Kog'Maw Shred, it's 125 extra damage per hit. So Kog'Maw is going to do 125 extra damage on hit. And he's going to be attacking 45% faster. And he's going to get an extra, 40% move speed or so. 37, 38% move speed. So that's just going to shatter people. Like, they're not going to be able to run away from him. He's going to be able to kite them backwards if he has to. And he's just going to do, like, an astronomical amount of damage to him. So, and if they do manage to get on him, then you can just wild growth him and stop him from wiping him out. So I think that that's really, really powerful. She also has True Sight, and don't forget about this. So if you're against a Twitch bot lane and a gank's coming in and he's trying to go invisible, just put Pix on him and he's revealed for 4 seconds, so he can't go invisible and run away. So Lulu historically is extremely good against Twitch and against other invisible champions like Akali, who you're not going to see, and Vayne and Kha'Zix and all that stuff. You're not going to see those, but you will see Twitch. So being able to slap True Sight on him for 4 seconds is a huge deal. And then she has really good synergy with Twitch and with Kog'Maw. So I think she's going to be a powerhouse support pick, and I think that Kog'Maw is going to be a powerhouse AD carry. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on Kog because he's weird. We haven't seen him a lot, but I think he's making a comeback, especially because they nerfed Kalista, so he can't get bullied out as much. And he can match the power of Tristana and Twitch later on. Perhaps even surpass it in some ways because he has greater utility, because he has the sniping ability, and a lot of his damage is magic damage too. That's also crucial. So if you want to run Lucian middle, or you want to run Jarvan top, or you want to run Ezreal in the jungle, which people will, then he gives you that magic damage. So you could potentially do something like Ezreal jungle, Jarvan top, and not completely like ruin your team composition because you're running Kog'Maw instead of a heavy AD bot champion. So he has lots of tactical flexibility. He allows you to run some of these other things like Lucian middle, like Tristana, or not Tristana, like Lucian middle, like Ezreal jungle, like Jarvan top. He allows you to run AD, more AD than you would usually be able to run, because you don't want to run more than like 2 ADs. You want to have 2 ADs and 2 APs typically on your team, not counting the support. So he gives you a lot of extra tactical flexibility. Okay, and Varus is the last one that I think is going to be coming up quite a bit. You've seen this guy some, but you saw him a lot earlier on this season, but I think he's been making a comeback. And I have seen some good Varuses on stream. My boy CleanX does play a clean Varus. He's pretty good with him. And I was a doubter for a while, but I've watched him in some pro games. I've seen him in solo queue. And I think if you're a good Varus player, he can be good. So the reason that I have Varus here, first of all, is he has long range. So he has 575 range. That means he has great harassment early. It's a lot better to position with him later. and I think he's the best of the utility AD carries. So by that, I mean, like, that offer crowd control, mostly. So his ultimate is just so good in team fights. If you hit somebody, it not only basically roots them for 2 seconds, but it forces everyone else to spread out or they're going to get rooted. So it can potentially turn an entire team fight if they're crowd controlled, because you know what? It's really hard to run away from those extra roots when you're pinned in with Jarvan, when Maokai's locking you up, when Sejuani's stunning everybody. It's really hard to run away from those chain of corruptions. So because we're in a meta that's heavily dominated by, or if Rakan, you know, charms everybody and knocks them up, it's going to be really hard to run away. So we're in a meta full of immobile champions and CC tanks. And those combined make it a very, very ripe situation for Chain of Corruption to tag multiple targets. So I think that makes him really strong. He's really good at dueling. If he hits this in a one-on-one on somebody, he's going to win the fight because he's going to get an extra few hits on him. And he's pretty decent at taking out tanks too, because he gets that extra 15% of the target's max health damage with his Blighted Quiver. So every time he attacks somebody, he just throws an arrow at him or drops a hail of arrows. This is pretty good to slow down to Grievous Wounds people too. So it's nice to put on, like, you know, a Maokai, or if you see Dr. Mundo or anything else that's going to be getting a lot of healing. He has some pretty good utility with that. So, and he has poke. So if you want to use him in a poke comp, he can throw piercing arrows at people. It doesn't do like the obscene amount of damage that it used to do in the past. But it's still pretty good. I mean, it's 235 damage with 150% of your AD. That's total AD. So if you have, you know, 200 AD near the end of the game, then that's going to be, you know, like 500 damage poke, which is pretty good. Now, it does cost a lot of mana, but it is a good poke option. So if you have a poke comp with like Talia or Ezreal or whatever to complement this, you have one other poke champion, Nidalee, then that could be a pretty good combo. So I think he has good range, so he's safe. He has good shred on tanks with his Hail of Arrows, pretty good 1v1 with his Chain of Corruptions, great team fighting with his Chain of Corruptions. And if he kills somebody, he starts going off. He gets a ton of extra attack speed, 40% plus 50% of his attack speed bonus. And if he goes rapid fire, static shiv, and then from his runes and things like that, he's going to get like probably 70 or 80% bonus attack speed. So that means that this is going to be, you know, half of that. He's going to be hitting for like 70 or 80% extra attack speed for 5 seconds when he gets a kill or an assist in a fight. So it's not quite a Tristana steroid, but it's pretty close. So it gives him some really nice steroid capabilities there. Jeez, I wanted this to be fast, but I just can't do so. This is just so in-depth. I probably should have done a separate video for each role, but whatever. I crammed it into one. So I think you'll see him. I think he's just a little bit better than Ashe. He doesn't have as much long range engaged, but I think he has better team fighting capabilities than Ashe does. So he is immobile. He can get dunked by Jarvan. He's not going to be able to escape. He doesn't do as much raw damage as Kog'Maw, Twitch. And he doesn't do as well against dive as someone like Xayah does. But he does have that engage if you need it with his ult. And really good team fight presence. I mean, it has some good range, decent range on it. I mean, it's like 1,000 range. So it's not like an Ashe arrow, but it's still pretty good range. It's a really slender skill shot, so you got to make sure you hit it. But I think you'll see him. Other honorable mentions, I think Kalista, people might still play her, and I heard some analysts, like, I think LS was downplaying this, like, oh, it's not a big deal, you know, lowering her ultimate by a certain amount. It's a massive deal, because that's her entire identity. That's a lot of it in the early and mid game. So one of Kalista's major strengths is that she can also engage, so she's another utility AD carry. Who can throw a tank into the middle of a team fight. And that's really strong. It's like a knock-up for, is it a second and a half or a second? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's a second and a half up to 2 seconds knock-up. So that's really powerful. And it used to be 120 seconds. Now it's 150. That's disgusting. If you look at like Varus, it starts at 110. It goes much down. If you look at Ashe Arrow, I think Ashe Arrow is like 130 or something. No, it's 100. Okay. So, like, the other premier engaged... Wow. That's actually pretty fast. And she gets Essence Reaver, too. So, she has lower... I mean, you'll still see Ashe some, probably. But yeah, here are these other engaged champions. 100 seconds, 110 seconds. Callista, 150. Like, that's huge, huge disadvantage to her. And she already doesn't scale as well as a lot of other AD carries. Like, she has good kite potential. She has pretty good harassment early. She's great at taking objectives like Baron and Dragon, because she can do more damage than even a Smite. So a great secure, but she just doesn't scale as well because she only gets 90% AD on her abilities, and she doesn't get critical strike. So she gets Bork, Hurricane, which both of those items have been nerfed 3 or 4 patches ago. So she was like permanently banned in virtually everything, so she still obviously has some excess power. But I think this nerf to Fate Call is, I mean, she might still be top 5. Like, it's totally possible that she could be as high. I don't think she's as good as Triss. I don't think she's going to be as good as Xayah. She could be as high as maybe number 3. So maybe you could put her at number 3. I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't see a lot of good Callistas in solo queue. But I think that, let me change this spacing. It's going to drive me crazy. There we go. So I don't know. Jury's out. We'll see just how much the nerf matters, but I think that it's a pretty I think it's a pretty big deal. I really do, because that's gonna slow her down a lot. It's not gonna let her snowball nearly as hard as she could before. Because when her ult's down, she just doesn't have a lot of threat. She's not gonna be able to beat a lot of other champions up early on. So we'll see. So she could be top 5, but I'm making her my first honorable mention. Sivir's another one who is really good at team fighting, excellent at split pushing, great utility if you run 2 or 3 tanks to run them all into your team to kill people. So you'll definitely see Sivir, and I think she's good, and I think she's competitive. I just don't think she's as good as the top picks because she has really low range. So she only has like 500 range, I believe, and that's just putting her way too close to Maokai, Sejuani, Jarvan, all of these champions. So the thing that all of these have in common is they all have much higher than normal range. Like Xayah, when she activates her passive or whatever, gets, I forgot what the range is. Is it like 800 or something? Maybe not that far. But she does get extra range. Let's see. So her base range is 525, which is kind of low. But after casting an ability, she gets an extra penetrate. So she gets like, I'm just not reading it. She gets extra range, right? That obviously has 1100 range, which is good. I thought her feathers, like, she got extra range with it. Next to basic attacks, passing through all enemies, dealing 100% damage to her main target, 50% pass through. Maximum range of feather is left. 5 empowered attacks. Okay, maybe she doesn't get extra range. I thought she got, like, you know, at least 100 extra range with that. She has good range on this. Blade Caller is global, so that's really good range if you're kiting people backwards. Okay, so maybe she doesn't get extra range, but I still think she's super powerful. But maybe not for that reason. But anyway, Sivir, it's just low range, but it's just pure utility. Lower damage output than a lot of other champions. Lower range, a little bit more dangerous, but excellent wave clear, excellent initiate, excellent disengage. So I think she will be picked. But like if you lack wave clear middle, like if you run a Cassidon middle or something like that, you might want to run a Sivir bottom just so you make sure that you have your wave clear covered, for example. So I think she'll be picked. She's going to be good if you have at least 2 tanks on your team, or if you really need good wave clear and you have like a Fiora and a good split pusher on your team, and like your AD carry is not your main path to victory, so you have other ways to win. I think she could be good. Ashe is good if you need really long range, hardcore engage. She's fallen out of favor a lot lately because a lot of people are playing tanks, and if you hit that, you know, Maokai with an arrow, it's just not going to matter most of the time. So she does have really good range. She has okay damage, but a lot of it you just pick her because you need hardcore engage. And I just feel like Varus is probably a better choice for that. Or just pick another position that has engage, right? Just pick something that runs Righteous Glory, like, you know, Maokai can Righteous Glory, or Sejuani, or just anything. Like, there are so many good engaged champions from other roles that you just don't need it in the mid role right now, I don't think. Or in the bot role. So, I don't think we'll see her that much. Jin's another one. Like, in theory, you could see Jin. He has pretty good power early game. So, if you don't want to run Callista or she's banned or she's just not good after the nerf, we'll see. Then Jin's going to be the other premier early game bully that could be played in pro play. But he's not good against tanks late game. He's been nerfed several times. His itemization is kind of weak. He's another person that would go like Essence Reaver, probably Rapid Fire Cannon, Infinity Edge. So his ult does start fights pretty well. He does chain together CC with his W with some supports. But he's really bad with Ardent Sensor. He doesn't have a lot of attack speed. He's not good at cutting through tanks. So he's okay. You might see him, but I would be surprised. And Caitlyn's another one. You might see her specifically in Siege comps. So if you just need a really long-range champion that has great zone control with the trap so that you can siege really well, if everyone else on your team's pretty bad at sieging, maybe you could go with that. But I think she gets outscaled and just really beaten up. Beaten up in the back alley by Tristana, Xayah, Twitch, and Kog'Maw right now. Because her attack speed scaling is just so slow. And she just doesn't have nearly the wave clear that she used to. So she's weak right now, I think. They're changing her next patch. 7.19, I think she'll be a lot better if the changes go through. But as of right now, I think she's a little underpowered. And finally, I'm going to do support. So this video that I wanted to take an hour is going to take 2 hours. Big surprise. But I think that, you know, if you watch my support tier list video, it's pretty close to that for the most part. I think Rakan's going to be number 1. You expect this guy to be picked or banned every time. They did nerf him somewhat on this patch, but they also lowered the cooldown on his ult. So it's like they nerfed him, but they also buffed him. So I think he's still ridiculously powerful. He's very, very good. I mean, you will see Rakan, Xayah always picked if it's available, I would imagine, by everybody. I would pick Xayah over Tristana if you could get Rakan also. So if they first pick something like a Maokai and you have the next 2 picks, that's going to be really common if someone first picks a flex. So they pick Maokai or Jarvan first, and then the team on the second side is probably going to pick Rakan, Xayah. Like, that's going to be very, very common phenomenon at this tournament. So, just super good, has excellent engage, works really well with Ardent Sensor. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to it. He's very safe. He can go roam and get away with his W really easily if he has to. He can use his R to get away if he has to. So, just excellent in a lot of comps. Really good engage from the support role. He's the premier engage from the support role. He can also peel really well. Really good all in. Very reliable. That's the thing about him, is you press RW, you're going to hit your target, like the vast, vast majority of the times. Or R plus flash, you're going to hit him. That's what's different between Rakan and Thresh, who's my number 2, is Thresh, you actually have to hit your hook. With Rakan, you're almost always going to hit him if you're a good Rakan player. So he just has much, much more reliability than Thresh does. So I think you're going to see Rakan played a lot. They did nerf the speed on his W a little bit, but I don't think that's going to allow enough time to outplay. And a lot of champions just don't have mobility right now either. So maybe someone could flash it if they see it fast enough. But even if you flash it, it's up for 4 seconds, so he can still just run around and catch people with it. That's another thing, is like, even if you miss your W, it still is a useful ability. Like, the if you turn your ult on and then ult W into somebody and they flash, you can flash after them and still hit them with it if you want to, because it's still going to be on. Or you can just like run and hit other people near them. So they did nerf him like a little bit, but I don't think it matters. I think he's still the number 1 support professionally. Thresh, you know, really good. Just great utility support. Like, he has really good engage with his hooks. If you hit them consistently, you can also combo that with pick comps. So if you have Syndra or Blanc on your team, they're dead. If you hit them with a hook, you can use it with poke comps. So you hit them with a hook, that allows Varus to hit them with an arrow, or Ezreal to open up on him with some Qs. You can use it as engage if you need to go start a fight. So you can hook their backline and then go in there and just flay everybody and put up your ult. And throw a lantern back and pull, you know, the Maokai into the middle of their team, or just like pull the Jarvan in their team so that he can dunk the back line. Like, there's so many different like combinations you can do with Thresh. Or you can play him defensively. You know, you can flay Rakan back when he tries to dash forward if you're fast enough with that. You can flay Alistar headbutts backwards. you can use your lantern to get people out of tough situations. So they get dunked by Jarvan, okay, throw a lantern on them, no big deal. So I think that he just has a lot of utility. I mean, he's historically been the best support of all time, and I think that he will continue to do so. He can actually run Ardent Sensor. I haven't seen a lot of people do that, but I've done that some in solo queue, because he does have a good ratio on his ult, on his Q. On his lantern even has an AP ratio on it, and you don't have to go hard engage with him. So I think you can reasonably like go like coin Oasis Ardent Sensor and then get tank items, then get Locket and stuff like that afterwards, if you don't plan to full engage. So if you have a Thresh on your team, like your Thresh, and you also have Jarvan and Maokai, you don't need to go in hardcore because they can go in. So that would open you up to be able to go Ardent Sensor. And then if you go Stoneborn Pact, then if you hit people with Flay or Hook or whatever, and then your allies hit them, then they all get the Ardent Sensor buff. So I haven't seen pros doing that nearly as much as I would expect. And I think that's something that you might see at least a few teams figure out and start integrating into their play. So I think you'll see him. I think it'll be great. Lulu's the sleeper here that a lot of people aren't talking about. I really, really think we're going to see a resurgence of Lulu. You know, some of the other supports have been dinged and nerfed a little bit, such as Rakan. But Lulu's still extremely strong. Like, I played her in solo queue some, and she's really good. Like, she has great wave clear early and harassment. Now, the harassment's not going to matter that much because a lot of people will take Door and Shield. But she has pretty good wave clear early on. Polymorph is excellent, especially in some matchups where people have really squishy, like, short-range stuff. So, like, if you're against a LeBlanc, or she's very good against Fiora, if Fiora shows up to a team fight. You can, like, polymorph tanks, but it's not that big of a deal. So I don't think you're going to be seeing a ton of poly, but the Whimsy version of it, where you beef up either your Kog'Maw, your Twitch, your Xayah, your Tristana, that's going to be a really big deal, especially Twitch and Kog'Maw. So Lulu Cog is absolutely disgusting. So she's got good wave clear. She has excellent steroids, the best of any major support that you're going to see here. Oh, I was about to say, did I forget about Janna? No, Janna's number 4. And she has good point-click, like, save people. Or you can point-click your ultimate to, you know, knock people up and allow Maokai or Jarvan or whomever to stick to them faster. Or stick to them for longer. So, she has really good defense. And she can itemize into Ardent Sensor and Athene's Unholy Grail and get a ton of utility out of that. You can still do Redemption. Redemption's powerful, but that's something I've been toying with, is getting that Athene's faster. That gives you a heal. It gives you more AP, which boosts up your picks. So I think that that's a really good build on her that a lot of people aren't utilizing. So you just go Ardent Sensor, then Athene's, then Redemption. But I think we might see some of that at Worlds. Janna's another one. We've been seeing her more. She actually has an 80% win rate over the last couple of patches that I've seen in pro play, and she's getting picked more and more. It's possible that Janna could be as high as number 2. I still think Rakan's better, but you might see Janna even as high as number 2, especially when you have these hyper carry ADCs that don't have a lot of self-peel. So if you see someone pick Twitch or Cog, you can expect to see either Lulu, Janna, or Braum, most likely, as the protectors for those champions. And Janna could be number 1 potentially. I mean, I've talked, if you watch this channel at all, you know how good Janna is, or if you've paid attention to solo queue at all, you know how good Janna is. So I expect her to draw bans. I expect her to get picked a lot. She could be as high as number 2. She doesn't have engage though, and I think that is that's a thing that some teams will care about. Some teams won't though, because once again, top and jungle is just full of engaged champions, so you don't necessarily need engage from the support role on this patch. That's another thing Lulu can do as well, is you can throw like your W on Jarvan and help him run and get to the backline faster. So I don't think she is quite as good with Kog'Maw as Lulu is, but she's still pretty good. With Twitch, it's a toss-up. Janna's probably better with Twitch, but these two ladies are going to be very, very strong. Either one of them could be up in the number 2 or 3 slot. I just think that people are just going to pick Thresh. They're familiar with it. He's versatile. We'll see, but these two will definitely be in the conversation. Morgana's another one that I think you're going to see as a counter pick that's really popular. She's the best support into Rakan. Janna's also pretty good. So yeah, she can also run Ardent Sensor, especially if you go Stoneborn Pact. You hit people with your Q. It's decent engage. It's a really long bind. And then so she has good peel. Like her Q is a 3-second bind, and then your ult, is a slow with another 1.5 seconds stun on it. So she has really good peel and engage for Twitch and Kog'Maw. So once again, if like Twitch rolls up, opens up invisible, you put Black Shield on him, like it's going to make it really hard for the enemy team to figure out how to deal with that, because they're not going to be able to crowd control him. And Morgana's going to be able to peel off of him pretty well. So I think you're going to see a lot of Morg. I wouldn't first pick her. I think that she can be tough in some comps, but I think you're going to see her a lot. And I think she, especially if Rakan, I don't know if Rakan's banned, people may not, but she's good into Thresh also. So she's good into Rakan and she's good into Thresh, because she stops a lot of their crowd control on key targets. She's okay into Lulu, okay into Janna, but I think you might see her specifically as a counter pick to these picks. Okay, honorable mentions, and this will be it for the video. I think Alistar will probably see some play. I really would not play Alistar unless Rakan's banned. I mean, he's a good just sort of point-click engage champion that's tanky. He doesn't use Ardent Sensor, though. You notice that each one of these champions can use Ardent Sensor, in my mind. That is a key qualification right now to be relevant in this meta. So they can each use Ardent Sensor, which is huge. So we'll see him. He's really good with early game dives. He's pretty good engage overall. We'll see him. I mean, he can put up some power early. He's really good with Callista if she gets picked. So, yeah, he's all right. You'll see him. I think Braum, you'll see Braum also. His shield is really good against Xayah because it stops her feathers from getting to the back line. It's really good against Twitch because it stops Twitch from shooting through you to get to other people. So Braum is specifically good into Xayah and Twitch. He's not going to do a lot against Cog or Varus. Like, he'll do his standard shield stuff. Tristana can blow him back when he shields. So he'll be all right. He doesn't use Ardent Sensor, which is a huge knock to him. They just nerfed Knight's Vow also, which also hurts, tanks quite a bit. So he's all right. If you do see him, I think you'll see him as a counter pick to either Twitch or Xayah, if you do see him. Or if for some reason they ban Thresh and like Janna or something and you need another peeler, then you might see Braum come in. Trundle's something that I've been seeing more of lately. I really don't like Trundle in this meta. Like, he's good against tanks. If you like ult the Sejuani and tell your whole team to dogpile on top of him. But he can't use Ardent that well. I've heard that like some Trundles are picking up Ardent, but he has no AP at all. Like, AP ratios in his kit. I think he has like 1% AP ratio on his ult. So I'd heard some people telling me, like, asking me in chat one stream, like, what do you think about Ardent Sensor Trundle? And my response was, it's bad. I mean, like, yeah, his slow pillar can proc Ardent Sensor with Stoneborn Pact. But you're just forcing it. I feel like there are just better picks out there. He doesn't have hard lockdown CC. The pillar is good. But yeah, there's no AP ratios. Like, this has a 1% per 100 AP ratio. It's nothing. So yeah, you're basically wasting 1,200 gold worth of stats if you go Ardent. And Pillar's okay, but it still has a really long cooldown. They just nerfed Knight's Vow. I just don't see it. I don't know. You might play him. I don't understand comps. I mean, I guess if you don't have enough damage to kill tanks, and they have a lot of tanks, maybe you could go Trundle there. But I think if you pick any of the top 5 80 carries, they can all kill tanks. Like, it's not, Varus might have a slightly harder time, but like Kog'Maw Twitch would just murder him, especially Kog'Maw. Xayah can deal with them Trist. So I just don't think you're gonna need Trundle, but you might see him. Nami's another one where she is a healer, shielder, who also has pretty good crowd control. You might see Wolf play this in Korea. You might see some other Koreans play Nami. She's okay. I mean, she's really good with potentially with Twitch because you can slow people so they can't run away from your ult as much. She can heal through tough lanes. I don't know. She's all right. I would just expect to see Janna or Lulu more, but she's okay. She has a pretty good matchup against Lulu in the early game, because she has a heal and Lulu doesn't. They can both harass a lot. So Another sleeper that you might see is Sona. So Sona is extremely good in solo queue. She's very, very good with Ardent Sensor. She's very good into Lulu. She has excellent early game harassment, and she scales harder than anybody for team fights. So if you have a hard team fight comp, you have like a Malachi, Jarvan, you know, Talia, Varus, Sona, or something like that. She's very good with that. If you hold them down with like a Jarvan ult or a Malachi ult or whatever, or hit them with a Varus ult or an Ashe ult, then Sona can follow up. She's very good at taking Barons because of her Q spam, just does a ton of extra damage to Dragons and Barons. So she has great objective control, excellent team fighting, excellent harassment early, excellent healing. That's the thing too, is if Poke comes back into play, if you start to see more Ezreals, more Varuses, more Nidalees, then having someone who can sit there and point-click heal like Sona is going to be really powerful so that you don't get pushed off of towers. The only other healer here is Nami, who can also do it, but it's not going to be as effective as Sona. So if you're against Poke, which might come back, as I explained, especially with Jungle Ezreal, then Sona can help alleviate some of that problem. So, you know, Sona's problem is she's very squishy. She's easily to isolate and kill. Jarvan can dunk her. LeBlanc can erase her. Syndra can erase her. So, you know, and she doesn't have the greatest peel. All she has is her ult for crowd control. So you'd have to have peel from other positions, or you'd have to play a champion that, like a Tristana, that can kind of peel for herself. But I think there's a possibility you could see Sona at Worlds. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. So, okay, that's going to be it. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Sorry this video is a lot longer than I thought, but I am covering 5 different roles, you know, and 50 different champions, trying to explain how they could be relevant at Worlds. So hopefully that helps you understand and appreciate what's going to be going on at Worlds a little bit more. Maybe that can help you out with your fantasy picks, or, you know, whatever prop bets that you're making with your friends, or just for fun, just so you can kind of just see where I stand on this stuff and see where you stand as well. So you can compare me to other analysts and stuff like that. So anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Have a good day.